All right, I am introducing our next speaker, Carol Haney. Carol is a master's prepared clinical nurse specialist. She is a nationally board certified health and wellness coach, and she is currently studying functional nutrition to enhance her coaching practice. She enjoys gardening, cooking, and grandkids, and art as tools for self-care. The floor is yours, Carol.
Thank you very much, Meg. How is everyone doing? I'm just going to put a little reminder in there. If you haven't stood up for a while, you might want to do it, because I personally, my butt is getting kind of numb sitting, and so that was my first clue, to stand up and get things moving. So while you're listening, I would encourage you to do that. This is a perfect segue, actually, for the little bit of information that I'm going to provide for you today. The information provided earlier by Dr. Stotz was perfect, because it really lays the groundwork for how we become our own advocates, how we awaken our own sense of how our bodies function, and in the role of the philosophy, the evidence in functional medicine. It is about how things should function, and then how do our bodies respond to various things to determine how they are functioning. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that, and I welcome any insight from those who have had experience with this. Meg previously mentioned the fact that she considered herself a detective. And I cannot emphasize that enough, that we are our best advocates, but we know our bodies the best. So if you consider yourself a detective in this process, think about what detectives do. They search for clues, they gather evidence, and they try to put the pieces of the puzzle together. Now, when detectives are getting information, they listen to the opinions of others, but when it comes down to it, they focus on the facts. And the facts are the ones that you know about your experience, what is happening to you, and your trial and error in experimenting with various things to see how your body is functioning. Now, I really caution us to look at root causes rather than just chasing symptom after symptom. And we use our symptoms, obviously, as a way to tell us whether we're getting closer to understanding the root causes. And I think based on everything everyone has said, you cannot disconnect, as one person indicates, this was my surgery, this was my experience, but yet at the same time, there's similarities. But so the three key principles that I am going to speak from are that everything is connected, and we do know that. There is no separation of one function of the body to another, but each system functions in a way that works synchronously and harmoniously with the rest of the body. And when one system is off, another system also starts to change. But yet at the same time, the second idea and principle is we are all unique. We each have our own genetic expression of whatever our body makeup is, our heritage, the gene pool we came from. And while we might be able to have some influence over the expression of those genes, they're yours. And they're not mine, they're not anyone else's, they're yours. And then the third piece is that all things matter. So don't discount various things as you're starting to do your detective work. And these three concepts correlate really well with how we look at our story, because we're all unique, how it's connected, and then how we make it matter in terms of what we do. Okay, so the first slide, I just put that in, but Dr. Stott had a really great slide, and I only put this in so you can actually see, if you were focusing around this area, this is the lymphatic system, and the lymphatic system is so interconnected. Having had breast cancer in the past, and I've had lots of experience with lymphedema, I recognize that, while we might all be experiencing that lymphedema in terms of its effect on us, it's the same reasons in many cases why things become backed up, why they swell, why they go down, etc. So this is just a slide to show you where the lymphatic system is, and in the case of abdominal thoracic, in this cavity here, you can see that chain being so interconnected. Okay, so we all remember the great words of Hippocrates when he said, "All disease begins in the gut." And so while we've been talking about a lot of things, one of the things that is common in all of this is the immune system. How does the removal of the omentum affect our immune response? How does the reality of having something taken from our body impact the function of what's left? And Meg shared her experiences with how she's tested over and over different things that she knows work for her. And so the idea is, though, we also have this system within the gut. Both physicians have mentioned about the digestive system and its impact on how we have the ability to strengthen our immune system. And so I wanted to talk very briefly about this piece, because part of your detective work is really about understanding this part of your the digestive system and how it impacts function on the immune system. So I'm going to just mention a little bit. I know many people are talking about the microbiome. It is the talk in all areas of science and health, and many areas of people seeking a way to be healthier. As both physicians were talking about the intermittent fasting and how that impacts our whole digestive process. There's the correlation between the microbiomes and our immune system is very strong. So microbiomes are just the combined genetic material of all the organisms inside of our gut. And so you've all heard about gut-brain health, that the gut really is the first brain, and then we have our brain, because things that happen in the gut affect the brains through the vagus nerve. And when we are making those connections, we're making them by understanding how we digest, how our small intestines integrate phagocytosis and the elimination of toxins that our body doesn't need. So we have multiple microbiomes, though. We have them in the skin, we have them in the nose, the mouth, the esophagus, the genitals, the lungs, and the gut. But the gut microbiome is so powerful, and it has it has the ability to influence those other microbiome sites as well. So, some types of what you see when we're talking about microbiome is, what are the things that are good for the gut? What are the things that are not so good for the gut? And we look at what are the things that are symbiotic. And because we want symbiosis in the digestive system, and those are the good guys. So we have the symbiotic, the good guys. 85% of that microbiome needs to be in that good guy category. And then there are some pathogenic ones as well, which are the bad guys. And we have a much smaller percentage of those. And then there are some that are just neutral. and they assist in the process of establishing a healthy microbiome in the digestive system. And so how do they affect the immune system? So I put a few links and arrows there. So when the microbiome, if it's an inseparable link between the health of the gut microbiome and the immune system, these two are very closely are connected. And so when you ask, well, the system, it needs a environment in which there's symbiosis of certain bacteria and the ability to eliminate ones that are not. So then another connection here is that I mentioned already about when we rejuvenate the microbiome in the gut, the immune system can replicate this new genetic code in other microbiomes of your body. When you have a pathogenic, more pathogens in the microbiome than symbiotic ones, you get an out of control inflammatory response that can be causing an imbalance in your gut. And when you are experiencing an imbalance in your gut, it affects the ability of the gut to help with the elimination of toxins, with the balance of fluid, with peristalsis, all of those things. So it's a clear connection about our digestive system, how it functions, and how healthy it is in relation to our immune response. Because when we talk about the omentum as being the place where we see this exchange and now it's gone, and someone asked earlier, well, what takes up the slack? Well, I don't know the complete answer to that, but I do know the digestive system, having a healthy digestive system helps some of that. So I want to talk, if anything from this brief talk comes away from this, it's the idea that as a detective, you're going to be tracking things. And the tracking is probably one of the most important parts. And it's not one little simple thing. It's a combination of things that's helping you discover more about your body. And I keep going back to Meg as your own detective. It's the same idea. And one of the things that we often have said in the past, an old chestnut used to be, you are what you eat. Well, in truth, you are what your body is able to use of what you eat. Because if your digestive system has some impairment, from the moment it goes into your mouth until it leaves your body, then you are not what you eat. You are what nutrients can be taken from what you eat and used in your digestive system, particularly in the small intestine. So eating healthy doesn't equate to a healthy body. And so you need to connect those dots. And there are times, I know I'm traveling now, and as a result of the traveling and the virus, eating healthy when you're on a 12-hour trip is really challenging. And so I have noticed over the last several days how that has impacted my sleep, my elimination, my stress levels, everything. And all I want to do is get the pots and pans in the kitchen so I can start cooking again. So the digestive system is different in each of us, right? So I mentioned this before. So that's why we have to track for our own benefits. Many factors influence how our bodies use the food we put in it. And your health is dependent on how your body utilizes the nutrients you provide to it. So yes, it's important to have the right nutrients, but how will your body use it? What is impacting? There are factors that can impact that digestion. So a functioning gut impacts the brain's ability to do its work. It sends signals, neurotransmitters are affected. How does that affect our mood? How does that affect our ability to rest? How does that affect our elimination cycle, et cetera? So tracking the function of our digestive system is the first step. So some of the things that affect our digestive system. There's the activation of our digestive enzymes, and they start literally before you put the food in your mouth. They start when you start smelling the food. They become activated, and those enzymes that are in your saliva that tell the stomach to secrete more acid so it can begin the process of breakdown. Those are messages to the brain. Secrete the hormone gastrin so that the pH can change in order to enhance digestion. There are medications that influence that pH, that environment. One of the most highly prescribed drugs, thanks to great advertising and great marketing, the proton pump inhibitors. When I teach nursing, clinical nursing, and when I'm in some of the facilities, particularly in long-term care facilities, I don't think there's a resident that isn't on omeprazole or some version of a proton pump inhibitor, and at the same time taking in other vitamins and minerals that they actually can't use because their pH in the stomach is being affected by the drugs that they take, or they're not separated enough in time, etc. Chewing, how much do you chew? I can't get over how quickly people eat. And I'm one of 9 in my growing up family, my immediate family. And when you're one of 9 and you sit at the table, you know what you do. You eat your food as quick as you can so nobody else can get it. And when that happens, you learn a very bad habit of not chewing your food thoroughly. There are all kinds of numbers out there about how long you should chew your food, but clearly it's probably a whole lot longer than you're actually doing. And if it feels like it's long and drawn out, then it's probably could be even a little longer. And one of the things I do with my grandkids when they're talking the whole time they're chewing is to get them to count their chews so that they will begin to pay attention to how quickly they're eating. So those items that are affecting our digestion are multiple. They're different in every one of us. And so you need to sort of look and pay attention to what those are. So the next piece of this in the tracking becomes, how do we track what's going in, how we feel when we actually after we eat, and how our elimination is affected. So yes, this is where we get to talk about poop. And everybody gets all wigged out when they start to talk about poop, but I hate to tell you, everybody does it. So the food, mood, poop challenge is what I encourage people to pay attention to. It's the very first thing. Remember, we're all individuals. I wouldn't begin to tell you what you should start with until you know what you're dealing with. So the idea behind the food, mood, poop, even though it raises an eyebrow or two, it's if you eat it, write it down. Reporting on your poop is not really hard. You just got to start to remember to look before you flush. But the key is when you are documenting your food, if you think about it, track it. The mood portion isn't just about how you feel emotionally. It's how you feel up, down, inside out, and in all parts of your body. If you think about it, one of the things I've noticed as a result of this travel that I've been doing, I have a whole lot more aches and pains and inflammation than I had last week. So it affects bloating, it affects gas, it affects sleep patterns. It affects all the things that you might associate. Now we have that column a little backwards. It should be food, mood, poop, but that's okay. So take a look at the mood things. Are you tired when you eat? Do you feel satisfied or comfortable? Is there gas or bloating? Are you having any kinds of joint pain? Are you experiencing sort of irrational or emotional responses that might be you're irritable or angry, or you get tired really quickly and you want to go to sleep? And I think the idea is that when you are paying attention much more closely and you write that down, you get the connection to the food that you just ate within a certain period of time, and you start to look at what your reaction is to that. And the third way we measure that is through looking at our poop. And so if we are noting what that looks like, okay, there you go. You've got it, everybody. You got the Bristol chart. It is the classic chart used to sort of evaluate your poop. And generally, all you need to do is write down a number. And the idea is that we have lots of different ways in which that can be expressed. But when you look at this, you can see where severe constipation to severe diarrhea, and in the middle looks like normal. You will begin to be able to see what foods are beginning to affect how your digestion is being affected through your poop. Okay? So, and even though we need to really kind of get past our idea that there's something wrong with looking at our poop, you will find over and over again that this is the place in which you say, oh, my gut doesn't feel so good. I really feel bloated, or geez, I don't understand what's happening. But then you look back at the food portion of your journal and you get a whole different picture about you. Okay, so this gives a little bit of insight to, and I know over my 40 plus years background in healthcare, we've always said to people, what are your bowel habits? And everybody's bowel habits are individual. And, if you only if you only move your bowels every 3 days, that's normal for you. Well, new look on this process, a new set of eyes paying attention to what is really considered quote unquote normal. Only you will be able to figure that out. But as you can see, the recommendation in a lot of the literature emphasizes that you are looking to sort of get to an ideal kind of stool consistency, which is usually around, on the Bristol chart, between 3 and 4. Then it also gives you a sense of understanding how you feel. So some of the questions you want to ask yourself, what do you feel like after elimination? After you've used the toilet, you go to the bathroom, do you feel, oh my God, I feel so much better now? Or is it just a general sense of relief that is done? You get a normal signal. It's not like you have to race to the toilet in order to complete your business, but you feel like you have adequate time from the signal to the elimination. And then when all that is over, how do you feel? How does your body feel? How does your belly feel? All of those are indications of how you are able to be a detective about the functioning of your digestive system. Because remember, we're connecting that microbiome in your gut, in your digestive system, to your immune response, your body's ability to be able to exchange fluids for elimination of fluids, a healthy blood flow through the capillaries, an elimination of the toxins, and homeostasis. And so that connection will give you more and more information as you move along. And it is a process that takes time. I have a husband that has digestive issues all the time. And every time I suggest to him that he consider an FMP journaling, he rolls his eyes at me. And I just tell him, then talk to your doctor, because I can't help if he doesn't have the ability to understand his own body functions. It's not going to be possible for anybody else to help you either. So you have to start with you. So some of the things that you can do to improve digestion: tracking, and as I just mentioned, using an FMP. Bone broth has a lot of benefits for people. I just consider the possibility that might be something that helps improve your body's ability to exchange fluids, keep a solid exchange of fluids. It's got a different component in it. If you're not eating meat, or you're a vegetarian, that changes the picture a little bit, of course. Pay attention to your bathroom posture. They have these little potty stools now. And I remember learning in nursing school in 1974, if you want someone to have a proper bowel movement, they need to put their feet up on a stool. I always just thought that was normal. And then now this is a big thing now, the new potties that they are selling. Examine the magnesium in your diet. I'm not suggesting run out and take a magnesium supplement. You need to work with your healthcare provider to identify whether or not that is an issue for you, because it can have some benefits. Are there probiotics in your daily routine? Are you getting those probiotics to add to the benefit of improving your microbiome? Get some regular exercise, as Meg mentioned earlier, and eat healthy from a perspective of how comfortable you are with eating as close to the ground as you possibly can, but what does that mean for you? Because for some people, those things where normally we would get magnesium from prebiotics from a lot of the foods that we eat to help create a healthier microbiome and helping the probiotic along in the gut, well, those things might bother you. So that's why tracking is very important. And then the last is mentioned earlier, stand and sit tall. Your blood flow into the digestive system is affected by how you sit. If we cut off the blood flow by bending over all the time and not being able to allow that digestion to happen, and it gets congested in literally the vascular system gets congested. If you've ever sat on a plane for a long period of time, you get that pelvic congestion. It's the same idea. All this is for things to flow. And so I encourage you to, next slide, I think that might be the last one. Yeah, it is. I encourage you to really look at this from the perspective of you're the detective. You have to identify for you what matters. Do your research. Doctor mentioned about, he looked up, he saw the advertisement or the article in the physician's lounge, and then he read it, and then he started Googling. And some Google things you can rely on, and the others, having your healthcare provider, whoever you're working with, to sort of bounce things off of so that you can have a conversation about what things do, what you need, what really works, if there's blood work needed, et cetera, et cetera. Dr. Stott, working in functional medicine, I'm sure she does some diagnostic work as well, but clearly stepping back and looking at how things are functioning by using the FMP is a really, really good start.